Hello, and welcome to my channel.
Lily Greenfield was a 10-year-old girl with a deep love for nature. She lived in a small village nestled in a lush forest, where the air was always crisp and filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers. The village was a hidden gem, untouched by modern developments, and it seemed to exist in perfect harmony with the surrounding nature. Every morning, Lily would wake up to the sound of birds chirping outside her window. She would throw open her curtains, eager to greet the day and all the wonders it held. As she stepped outside, the sunlight would filter through the leaves of the towering trees, casting a dappled glow on the forest floor. But what made this village truly special was the fairy garden, an enchanting oasis in the heart of the village. The fairy garden was a magical place, filled with vibrant flowers, sparkling streams, and delicate fairy houses nestled among the trees. It was said that fairies would come out at night to dance among the flowers, their laughter echoing through the stillness of the night. Lily was drawn to the fairy garden like a magnet. Every day after school, she would rush to the garden, her heart filled with excitement and wonder. As she stepped into the garden, she could feel a tingling sensation in her fingertips, as if the magic of the place was flowing through her veins. The fairies would flutter around Lily, their wings shimmering in hues of blue, green, and gold. She would talk to them, her voice filled with joy and laughter. They would listen intently, their eyes sparkling with understanding. Lily had a deep connection with nature, and she could communicate with these magical creatures as if they were old friends. Lily spent hours exploring the fairy garden, her bare feet sinking into the soft earth as she wandered among the wildflowers. She would sit by the stream, watching as it meandered through the garden, its clear waters reflecting the sunlight. The birds would sing their sweet melodies, and the gentle breeze would whisper secrets in her ears. Lily's connection with nature went beyond mere appreciation. She could sense the emotions of the plants and animals around her, and they seemed to respond to her presence. The flowers would bloom brighter when she approached, as if eager to show off their beauty to her. The trees would sway gently, their branches reaching out to touch her as if in greeting. But it was the fairies that captured Lily's heart. They would flit around her, their delicate wings creating a soft breeze that caressed her cheeks. They would whisper tales of their adventures in faraway lands, and Lily would listen intently, her eyes wide with wonder. The fairies trusted Lily, and she cherished their friendship. Whenever Lily was in the fairy garden, she felt a sense of peace and belonging that she couldn't find anywhere else. It was as if the garden was her sanctuary, a place where she could truly be herself. She would lie on the grass, gazing up at the sky, and let the magic of the garden wash over her. Please support my channel by liking, and subscribing. One day, as Lily was leaving the fairy garden, she overheard her grumpy neighbor, Mr. Grimsby, talking to another villager. His voice was filled with anger and frustration. "That fairy garden is nothing but a nuisance," he exclaimed. "It attracts pests and brings chaos to our peaceful village. I say we get rid of it once and for all." Lily's heart skipped a beat as she listened to Mr. Grimsby's words. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. The fairy garden was a source of joy and wonder for everyone in the village, or so she thought. How could Mr. Grimsby want to destroy something so beautiful? Determined to find out more, Lily approached Mr. Grimsby cautiously. "Excuse me, Mr. Grimsby," she said tentatively. "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation. Why do you want to destroy the fairy garden?" Mr. Grimsby scowled at Lily, his wrinkled face contorted with anger. "That garden is nothing but trouble," he growled. "It's a breeding ground for pests, and it disrupts the peace and quiet of this village. I won't rest until it's gone." Lily's heart sank as she realized the depth of Mr. Grimsby's hatred for the fairy garden. She couldn't understand how someone could be so blind to its beauty and magic. But she knew that she had to do something to protect it. Determined to change Mr. Grimsby's mind, Lily approached him with a passionate plea. "Mr. Grimsby," she began, her voice filled with emotion. "The fairy garden is not a nuisance. It's a place of wonder and joy for everyone in the village. It brings us closer to nature and reminds us of the magic that exists in the world." Mr. Grimsby scoffed, his eyes filled with disdain. "Magic? Fairy tales and nonsense," he muttered. "There's no place for such things in the real world." "But Mr. Grimsby," Lily persisted, her voice filled with desperation. "The fairy garden is real. I've seen it with my own eyes. The fairies, the flowers, the magic, it's all real. And it brings so much happiness to everyone who visits." Mr. Grimsby crossed his arms, his face hardened with stubbornness. "I've made up my mind," he declared. "That garden is a blight on this village, and I won't rest until it's gone." Lily felt tears welling up in her eyes as she realized that her words were falling on deaf ears. She couldn't bear the thought of losing the fairy garden, but she refused to give up. She knew that she had to find a way to change Mr. Grimsby's mind. As days turned into weeks, Lily's desperation grew. She spent every spare moment in the fairy garden, trying to come up with a plan to save it. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't think of a way to convince Mr. Grimsby of its importance. One sunny afternoon, as Lily was sitting by the stream, lost in thought, she heard the sound of heavy footsteps approaching. Startled, she looked up and saw Mr. Grimsby standing at the edge of the garden, a determined look on his face. "I've had enough of this nonsense," Mr. Grimsby shouted, his voice echoing through the garden. "I'm going to destroy this place once and for all." Lily's heart raced as she realized that her worst fears were coming true. She had to think fast. She couldn't let Mr. Grimsby destroy the garden. In a moment of desperation, Lily's eyes fell upon a small, glimmering object nestled among the flowers. It was a hidden treasure, something she had never noticed before. She reached out and picked it up, her fingers tingling with anticipation. As she held the treasure in her hands, she could feel its magical energy pulsating through her veins. It was a small, golden locket with intricate engravings of flowers and fairies. Lily knew that this locket held the key to saving the fairy garden. She rushed towards Mr. Grimsby, clutching the locket tightly in her hand. "Wait," she cried out. "Before you destroy the garden, you have to see this." Mr. Grimsby turned to face Lily, his eyes filled with skepticism. "What is it, girl?" he sneered. "More fairy tales." Lily opened the locket, revealing a tiny, glowing seed nestled inside. "This seed holds the magic of the fairy garden," she explained. "If you plant it in your own garden, you will see the beauty and wonder that the fairy garden brings. Please, Mr. Grimsby, give it a chance." Mr. Grimsby looked at the seed in Lily's hand, his eyes narrowing in suspicion. But something in Lily's earnest expression made him pause. He decided to give it a try, if only to prove her wrong. Lily led Mr. Grimsby to his own garden, a barren patch of land that hadn't seen life in years. With trembling hands, she planted the seed in the soil, her heart filled with hope. Days turned into weeks, and Lily visited Mr. Grimsby's garden every day, watering the seed and tending to it with care. Slowly but surely, a tiny sprout emerged from the ground, reaching towards the sky. Mr. Grimsby watched in awe as the sprout grew into a magnificent flower, its petals shimmering with vibrant colors. The once barren garden was now alive with beauty and magic. "I never thought I'd see the day," Mr. Grimsby whispered, his voice filled with wonder. "This is truly remarkable." Lily smiled triumphantly, her eyes shining with joy. She knew that she had changed Mr. Grimsby's perspective, and she hoped that he would now understand the importance of preserving nature's magic. As the days passed, Mr. Grimsby's transformation became more apparent. He spent hours in his garden, tending to the flowers and plants with care. He would sit on a bench, watching as butterflies danced around him, their delicate wings brushing against his cheeks. Lily would often join him in the garden, and they would talk for hours about the wonders of nature. Mr. Grimsby shared stories of his childhood, when he used to spend hours exploring the forest and communing with the animals. Lily listened intently, her heart filled with gratitude that she had been able to bring back those memories for him. Mr. Grimsby's connection with the magical creatures in the garden grew stronger with each passing day. The fairies would dance around him, their laughter filling the air. The birds would perch on his shoulders, singing their sweet melodies. And the flowers would bloom brighter than ever before, as if celebrating his newfound appreciation for nature. Lily and Mr. Grimsby formed an unlikely friendship, united by their love for nature and their determination to protect its magic. Together, they came up with a plan to create a barrier around the fairy garden, ensuring its safety from any future threats. The villagers rallied behind Lily and Mr. Grimsby, realizing the importance of preserving the enchantment of the fairy garden. They helped build a fence made of woven branches and adorned it with flowers and fairy lights, turning it into a beautiful symbol of unity and protection. As the fence was completed, the villagers gathered in the fairy garden to celebrate its preservation. They danced among the flowers, their laughter mingling with the songs of the fairies. Lily and Mr. Grimsby stood side by side, their hearts filled with gratitude for the support of their community. The village had never been more alive with magic and wonder. People from neighboring towns would come to visit the fairy garden, their eyes wide with awe as they witnessed the enchantment that filled the air. Lily and Mr. Grimsby became ambassadors for the fairy garden, sharing its story with anyone who would listen. They spoke at schools, community gatherings, and even appeared on local television shows. Their passion for nature and their determination to protect its magic inspired people far and wide. The village thrived, not just economically, but spiritually. The villagers had rediscovered their connection with nature, and they embraced it wholeheartedly. They planted gardens, created art inspired by the fairy garden, and organized festivals to celebrate the beauty of the natural world. As the years passed, the fairy garden continued to flourish, a testament to the power of unity and love for nature. Lily grew up to become a renowned botanist, dedicated to preserving the magic of the natural world. And Mr. Grimsby became an advocate for environmental conservation, using his influence to protect forests and wildlife. The village lived in harmony with nature, forever grateful for the gift of the fairy garden. And as the villagers gathered in the garden one last time, they looked around with wonder and appreciation. The fairies danced among the flowers, their laughter echoing through the stillness of the night. And in that moment, they knew that the magic of the fairy garden would live on, forever etched in their hearts.